The room did not fill with applause. It fell into complete silence. Behind the closed doors of Buckingham Palace, King Charles had delivered a message that no one in the royal household expected to hear so soon. It was not a speech about ceremony. It was not another routine update from the crown. It was a decision that placed Princess Catherine at the very centre of the monarchy's future and left even the most experienced royal advisors exchanging uncertain glances. The king spoke with calm conviction, but every carefully chosen word carried the weight of history. Why had this moment arrived now? What had convinced Charles that the future could no longer wait? And why are royal insiders quietly calling this one of the most important decisions of his reign? Before the truth behind that private meeting can be understood, we must first uncover what was happening inside the palace long before the doors were closed. Power rarely announces itself with noise. More often, it arrives through silence. Measured words and decisions that reshape the future before the public even realises they have been made. That was the atmosphere surrounding Buckingham Palace as senior members of the royal family gathered for one of the most closely watched internal meetings of King Charles's reign. Nothing about the morning appeared unusual to those standing outside the palace gates. The royal standard still flew above the building. Officials continued moving through familiar corridors. Staff members carried folders between private offices with the same disciplined routine they followed every day. Yet behind those historic walls, conversations were unfolding that many royal commentators believe could influence the direction of the monarchy for years to come. King Charles entered the meeting without unnecessary ceremony. Those present immediately noticed that his expression carried none of the warmth often seen during public engagements. Instead, it reflected the seriousness of a monarch who understood that leadership sometimes requires decisions that extend far beyond the present moment. He had spent months speaking about stability, continuity, and preparing the institution for the future. Now, according to royal observers, those principles appeared ready to move from private discussion into practical action. Around the table sat the senior figures entrusted with protecting the long-term strength of the monarchy. Prince William listened with the quiet focus that has increasingly defined his public role. Princess Catherine remained composed beside him, her calm presence reflecting the confidence that has earned admiration across the United Kingdom. She did not interrupt. She did not seek attention. Instead, she listened carefully, understanding that moments of genuine importance are often measured not by dramatic speeches, but by thoughtful restraint. King Charles began by speaking about responsibility rather than privilege. He reminded those present that every generation inherits not only titles, but also the obligation to preserve public trust. The monarchy, he explained, survives because it adapts carefully while respecting centuries of tradition. Change for its own sake has never been the purpose of the institution. Instead, change must strengthen confidence, protect stability, and prepare the crown for challenges that cannot always be predicted in advance. Those words immediately shifted the atmosphere inside the room. They sounded less like a reflection on the past and more like the beginning of something new. Royal commentators have often noted that Charles has approached his reign with a clear understanding that public confidence cannot be taken for granted. Every engagement, every charitable visit, every carefully planned appearance contributes to the relationship between the royal family and the people they serve. In recent years, no senior working royals have attracted more consistent public support than Prince William and Princess Catherine. Their work across healthcare, early childhood development, environmental initiatives and community engagement has steadily strengthened their reputation, both inside Britain and around the world. The king acknowledged that growing confidence directly. Without raising his voice, he reportedly spoke about Catherine's ability to connect with people across every generation. Her influence, he suggested, comes not through authority alone, but through consistency, dignity, and compassion. These qualities cannot be created by ceremony. They are earned through years of public service. William lowered his eyes for a brief moment. Those who know the future king well understand that he has never appeared comfortable with personal praise. His attention has always remained fixed on duty rather than recognition. Catherine responded in much the same way. She offered no visible celebration, no expression of triumph. Instead, her silence reflected the awareness that greater responsibility always arrives carrying greater expectation. Across the wider royal family, Princess Anne's decades of loyal service remained an important part of the discussion. Charles reportedly praised her unwavering commitment, describing her example as one that had helped shape the values expected of every working royal. Her discipline, reliability and devotion to public duty continue to provide stability during periods of change. Rather than creating competition between generations, the King's remarks emphasised continuity, showing how experience and preparation must work together if the institution is to remain strong. Outside the palace, however, none of these carefully measured conversations could yet be seen. Journalists noticed only subtle changes, a meeting that lasted longer than expected, senior advisors leaving with unusually serious expressions, vehicles departing quietly through private gates. Small details that, taken individually, meant very little. Together, they fueled growing speculation that something significant had taken place behind closed doors. Royal experts quickly began examining every available clue. Was the King preparing to announce additional responsibilities for the Prince and Princess of Wales? Had long-term succession planning entered a new phase, or was this simply another routine strategic discussion being transformed into dramatic headlines through public curiosity? Without official confirmation, no responsible observer could answer those questions with certainty. Yet the unusual timing of the meeting continued attracting attention throughout the country. Inside Buckingham Palace, however, King Charles understood something that few people outside those walls could fully appreciate. Preparing the future of the monarchy is not accomplished through one public announcement. It begins with quiet conversations, careful planning, and decisions made long before the public ever hears about them. But if this meeting was only the beginning, what exactly had the King decided that convinced experienced royal insiders the monarchy was quietly entering an entirely new chapter? The question did not begin inside the meeting itself. According to royal commentators, it had been growing quietly for months, shaped by every public engagement, every community visit, and every moment when the future of the monarchy seemed to reveal itself without anyone saying a word. King Charles understood that public confidence is not measured by opinion polls alone. It is measured by consistency. It is built through years of dependable service, calm leadership, and the ability to reassure a nation during uncertain times. That understanding reportedly became the foundation of the conversation unfolding behind the palace doors. The King allowed the room to remain silent before continuing. No one interrupted him. Those present knew that when a monarch chooses his next words carefully, every sentence carries meaning far beyond the meeting itself. Charles spoke about continuity, reminding everyone that every sovereign inherits two responsibilities at the same time. The first is to protect the institution as it exists today. The second is to prepare it for the generation that will one day inherit it. One responsibility cannot survive without the other. Prince William listened without moving. He had spent years preparing for responsibilities that would eventually become his own. Yet every additional duty carried expectations far greater than public recognition. Those closest to the prince have often described him as someone who measures success not by headlines, but by service. That quiet approach has gradually strengthened public trust, making him one of the most respected figures within the royal family. Princess Catherine remained equally composed. Throughout her years as Princess of Wales, she has consistently focused attention on her work rather than herself. Whether supporting early childhood development, mental health initiatives, healthcare organisations, or local communities across the United Kingdom, she has built a reputation based on consistency instead of spectacle. Royal observers frequently note that this steady approach has become one of her greatest strengths. Public confidence has not arrived suddenly. It has been earned through years of visible commitment. King Charles reportedly acknowledged that reality directly. He explained that public trust cannot simply be inherited through titles. It must be earned repeatedly through actions. According to commentators familiar with royal affairs, the King's remarks emphasised that the monarchy's future would depend on individuals capable of maintaining that trust during changing times. Around the table, several senior advisors exchanged brief glances. They understood exactly what those remarks implied. Discussions about the future were no longer theoretical. They were becoming practical. Every institution eventually reaches a moment when preparation must move beyond planning and begin taking visible form. Although no constitutional announcement had been made, many believed the King was describing the principles that would shape future responsibilities within the royal family. Princess Anne's name then entered the discussion. Charles reportedly praised her decades of unwavering public service, describing her discipline as an example for every generation that follows. Few members of the royal family have carried out more official engagements with such consistency or attracted greater respect across political and public life. Her experience represented something invaluable institutional memory. While William and Catherine symbolise the future, Anne represents continuity between generations. The king reportedly emphasised that a successful monarchy depends on both experience and renewal. Neither can replace the other. The wisdom gained through decades of service strengthens those preparing to carry responsibility into the future. Rather than creating competition between senior royals, Charles appeared determined to reinforce cooperation built on shared duty. Outside Buckingham Palace, however, speculation had already begun spreading across newspapers, television studios and social media platforms. Journalists noticed an unusual number of senior officials arriving at the palace earlier than expected. Several scheduled engagements had quietly been adjusted. Royal correspondents quickly began asking whether routine planning meetings had evolved into something more significant. Television analysts examined every available detail. Why had the meeting lasted considerably longer than originally anticipated? Why had advisors departed without offering even the smallest indication of its purpose? Why had palace officials remained unusually careful when responding to media inquiries afterward? None of those observations confirmed anything, yet together they encouraged fresh debate across the country. Royal experts repeatedly reminded audiences that constitutional decisions cannot be assumed simply because speculation becomes widespread. Buckingham Palace has always operated according to established procedures, and only official statements can confirm changes involving royal duties or responsibilities. Nevertheless, commentators acknowledge that periods of quiet preparation often attract the greatest public interest precisely because so little information becomes available. Inside the palace, the atmosphere remained remarkably controlled. King Charles understood that modern leadership requires more than preserving tradition. It requires ensuring that future generations inherit an institution capable of maintaining public confidence in a rapidly changing world. Every decision must therefore balance continuity with careful adaptation. Move too quickly and tradition risks being weakened. Move too slowly and the institution risks appearing disconnected from the people it serves. William finally broke the silence with a thoughtful observation. According to those familiar with royal reporting, the prince emphasised that public trust is strengthened not through dramatic announcements, but through consistent service over many years. It was a reflection not on personal ambition, but on responsibility itself. Catherine quietly agreed, adding that every new responsibility should deepen the royal family's connection with communities rather than simply expanding ceremonial roles. The king's expression reportedly softened for the first time that morning. Those remarks reflected exactly the values he had hoped to hear. Preparation, humility and service remained at the centre of every conversation about the monarchy's future. Yet even as the meeting appeared to be drawing toward its conclusion, one final document remained unopened. On the polished table before the king, several advisors noticed it immediately. Charles rested his hand upon the folder, but did not open it. Whatever it contained had not yet been discussed. And as every eye in the room slowly turned toward that unopened document, one question quietly settled over Buckingham Palace. What decision had King Charles kept until the very end, and why did even his closest advisors appear unprepared for what they were about to hear? For several long seconds, no one reached for the folder. It rested quietly before King Charles, sealed beneath the royal crest, yet somehow becoming the most important object in the room. The king allowed the silence to settle naturally, understanding that certain moments lose their meaning when they are rushed. Around the polished table, senior advisors remained completely still. Prince William looked briefly toward the document before returning his attention to his father. Princess Catherine noticed the exchange but offered no reaction. Whatever the folder contained, everyone understood that it represented preparation rather than impulse. King Charles finally placed one hand upon the cover. His voice remained calm. The future of this institution, he reportedly said, cannot depend on one generation alone. It must be strengthened long before change becomes necessary. Those words immediately shifted the atmosphere. According to royal commentators, Charles has consistently viewed succession planning as a gradual process rather than a single event. The strength of the monarchy depends upon careful preparation, allowing future responsibilities to develop naturally instead of appearing suddenly during moments of national transition. That philosophy has shaped much of his reign, emphasising stability above spectacle. The king reportedly explained that every successful institution must prepare its future while the present remains secure. Waiting until circumstances demand immediate action leaves little room for careful planning. Preparing early, however, allows experience, confidence and public trust to grow together. As Charles continued speaking, attention naturally turned toward Prince William and Princess Catherine. Over recent years, their public roles have steadily expanded through charitable initiatives, environmental projects, healthcare campaigns and community engagement across the United Kingdom. Rather than seeking greater visibility, they have focused on long-term service. Royal analysts frequently point out that this consistency has strengthened public confidence more effectively than dramatic headlines ever could. Charles reportedly acknowledged that reality with unusual clarity. He described William as a future sovereign who had demonstrated patience instead of urgency. He described Catherine as someone whose influence had grown not because she demanded attention, but because she consistently earned respect through compassion, professionalism, and quiet dedication. The room remained silent, not because anyone disagreed, but because everyone understood the significance of hearing those observations spoken directly by the king himself. William lowered his eyes briefly. Those familiar with his approach to royal life have often noted that he has never appeared comfortable discussing his own position. Responsibility has always mattered more than recognition. Every additional duty represents another promise to serve, not another personal achievement. Catherine responded in the same measured way. She neither smiled nor celebrated. Instead, she appeared thoughtful. Royal service, she has often demonstrated, is measured through consistency rather than applause. According to commentators, that steady approach has become one of the defining characteristics of her public life. King Charles then reportedly turned the discussion towards something even broader. He reminded everyone present that public confidence is among the monarchy's greatest responsibilities. Trust cannot simply be inherited through tradition. It must be renewed continuously through visible commitment, responsible leadership, and meaningful engagement with the nation. Several advisors quietly nodded. They understood that these remarks extended far beyond one meeting. They reflected the king's long-term vision for how the institution would continue evolving while preserving its historic foundations. Princess Anne's experience again became part of the conversation. Charles reportedly praised her decades of unwavering public service, describing her as an example of discipline, reliability, and devotion to duty. Her commitment, he explained, provides stability that benefits every generation of the royal family. William listened carefully. He has frequently spoken about learning from senior members of the family, but whose experience spans decades of public life. Anne's example, according to many royal observers, represents exactly the kind of steady leadership that younger generations continue to value. Outside Buckingham Palace, however, entirely different conversations were unfolding. Television broadcasters filled their programmes with speculation. Newspaper editors examined every movement made by senior royals during recent weeks. Royal correspondents compared previous palace announcements with current scheduling changes, searching for patterns that might explain why the private meeting had attracted such extraordinary attention. Social media discussions expanded by the hour. Some believed an important announcement involving William and Catherine was approaching. Others urged patience, reminding audiences that Buckingham Palace confirms significant constitutional or ceremonial developments only through official statements. Royal experts echoed the same advice. They emphasised that speculation should never be confused with confirmed information. While public interest remained exceptionally high, responsible reporting required waiting for official communication before drawing firm conclusions. Inside the palace, King Charles appeared fully aware of that reality. He reportedly reminded those gathered that public confidence depends not only upon the decisions a monarchy makes, but also upon the manner in which those decisions are communicated. Timing, clarity, and responsibility all matter. Then something unexpected happened. Rather than opening the folder immediately, the king slowly slid it across the table. It stopped directly in front of Princess Catherine. The room grew noticeably quieter. No announcement followed. No explanation came. Charles simply looked toward Catherine before turning his attention to William. Several advisors exchanged cautious glances. Even Princess Anne reportedly remained completely still. The unopened document now rested before the Princess of Wales, yet no one had been told why. Was it simply another briefing prepared for future planning? Or had King Charles quietly placed before Princess Catherine a responsibility that would shape the next chapter of the monarchy in ways the public had not yet imagined? For a brief moment, no one spoke. The unopened folder remained in front of Princess Catherine, yet King Charles made no attempt to explain why he had placed it there. Around the table, even the most experienced advisors understood that silence inside the palace often carries greater meaning than immediate answers. William glanced toward Catherine before looking back at his father. The Princess of Wales kept her hands folded, choosing not to reach for the document until the king invited her to do so. It was a small gesture, but one that reflected the discipline and restraint that have increasingly defined her public role. Charles finally broke the silence. According to royal commentators, the king explained that leadership within the royal family is no longer measured only by the constitutional position. It is also measured by public confidence, consistency, and the ability to represent the crown during moments of uncertainty. Titles may be granted through tradition, he reportedly suggested, but trust is earned through years of visible service. Those words immediately gave the meeting a different direction. This was no longer simply a discussion about schedules, ceremonies, or official engagements. It had become a conversation about the future character of the monarchy itself. The king reportedly spoke about Princess Catherine's remarkable ability to connect with people from every part of the country. Whether visiting hospitals, supporting children's charities, meeting military families, or promoting early childhood development, her approach has remained remarkably consistent. She has rarely sought the spotlight for herself. Instead, she has allowed her work to become the focus of public attention. Royal observers have frequently pointed out that this quiet consistency has become one of her greatest strengths. Unlike moments driven by headlines or controversy, Catherine's reputation has grown gradually through reliability. Every appearance has reinforced the same qualities: composure, professionalism, empathy, and stability. According to many commentators, these characteristics have steadily strengthened public confidence in the future of the royal family. King Charles reportedly acknowledged exactly that. He explained that institutions survive not simply because of history, but because each generation demonstrates that history still has meaning. The monarchy, he suggested, must continue showing the nation that duty remains stronger than personal recognition. William listened carefully. Those familiar with his approach to royal service often describe him as someone who values preparation over publicity. Rather than viewing greater responsibility as personal advancement, he has consistently spoken about service as a lifelong commitment. According to royal analysts, that attitude has become one of the reasons many people view him as a steady future king. Princess Anne quietly supported the king's observations. According to royal commentators, she reminded those present that public respect cannot be demanded by any institution. It must be earned repeatedly through dependable service. Drawing upon decades of experience, Anne reportedly emphasised that every generation must prove itself again, regardless of the history it inherits. The room remained thoughtful. No disagreement emerged. Instead, the discussion appeared to unite around one central principle: preparation. Preparation before transition, preparation before expectation, preparation before responsibility becomes unavoidable. Outside Buckingham Palace, however, none of these conversations had yet reached the public. Journalists continued waiting near the palace gates. Television crews remained stationed outside official entrances. Royal correspondents refreshed their sources repeatedly, hoping for confirmation that something significant had taken place behind closed doors. Across Britain, speculation continued growing. Some newspapers suggested the king was preparing to expand the responsibilities of the Prince and Princess of Wales in the coming years. Others argued that the meeting reflected ordinary long-term planning rather than any immediate constitutional development. Royal experts continued urging caution. They reminded audiences that discussions inside Buckingham Palace often involve strategic planning, extending years into the future. Not every private meeting results in an immediate immediate public announcement, and only official palace communications can confirm changes involving royal roles or responsibilities. Even so, public curiosity refused to fade. Inside the palace, King Charles reportedly looked once more toward the unopened folder resting before Catherine. This, he quietly said, according to commentators, is not about changing who the monarchy is. He paused. It is about ensuring that the values people already trust continue to guide its future. Only then did Catherine gently open the folder. Those seated nearby watched carefully. There was no dramatic reaction, no expression of surprise. She read the contents slowly before looking back toward the king with calm understanding. William observed the exchange without speaking. Princess Anne remained composed. The advisers exchanged discreet glances. Whatever the document contained, it appeared to confirm months of careful planning rather than an unexpected decision. Yet the palace doors remained firmly closed. No official statement followed the meeting. No constitutional announcement was released. No public declaration explained what had been discussed inside that historic room. Instead, Buckingham Palace returned to its familiar rhythm, while questions across the country only continued to grow. Had King Charles quietly completed another step in preparing the future of the monarchy? Was Princess Catherine being entrusted with responsibilities that would gradually become visible through future engagements rather than dramatic announcements? Or was this carefully guarded meeting simply the beginning of a much larger plan that Buckingham Palace intends to reveal only when the time is right? One thing remains certain. Until the palace chooses to speak officially, the discussions surrounding King Charles, Prince William, Princess Catherine, Princess Anne, and the future direction of the royal family will continue to captivate millions, leaving one final question echoing far beyond the palace walls. When Buckingham Palace finally breaks its silence, will the nation discover that the monarchy's next chapter has already quietly begun?